Chapter 1: The Fateful Night. The rain fell heavily that night, as if the very sky were weeping for the city. The deserted streets reflected the neon sign lights, creating a ghostly and unsettling landscape. Raindrops danced in the puddles, forming waves and spirals, while the wind howled through the dark alleys. It was a night like many others in Coldwater City, where darkness seemed to hide all the secrets and sins of humanity. In the heart of the city, on the 5th floor of an old building, a solitary lamp flickered in the window of a messy office. It was the office of Jack Malone, a private detective with more scars than happy memories. Jack had seen it all in his career: lies, betrayals, crimes of passion, and lately, a series of murders that was leaving the city in a panic. The phone rang, interrupting Jack's dark thoughts. He reached out and picked up the receiver, feeling a twinge of concern. Calls in the middle of the night never brought good news. "Malone speaking," he said, his voice hoarse with fatigue. "Jack, it's Lieutenant Harris," replied the deep voice on the other end of the line. "We've found another victim. Same scene as always. Red car spotted nearby." Jack felt a chill down his spine. The red car killer had claimed his 5th victim. He knew he needed to act quickly before someone else became a statistic. "Where was it?" Jack asked, already grabbing his coat and hat. "At the corner of 5th and Elm Street. We're keeping the area cordoned off. I need you here, Jack. This guy is getting bolder." "I'm on my way," Jack said, hanging up the phone. He descended the building's stairs quickly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The rain hit him like a punch when he stepped into the street, but Jack barely noticed. He lit a cigarette, the small comfort of nicotine helping to clear his mind. When he arrived at the crime scene, he saw the blue lights of police cars reflecting in the sidewalk water. A small curious crowd gathered behind the police tapes. Jack ducked under the tapes and approached Lieutenant Harris, who was standing next to the body covered by a white sheet. "What do we have here, Harris?" Jack asked, surveying the surroundings with eagle eyes. "Woman in her 30s, strangled just like the others." Harris sighed. "Witnesses said they saw a red car leaving in a hurry." Jack knelt beside the body, lifting the sheet carefully. The woman's face was pale and lifeless, her eyes open in a frozen look of terror. Jack felt a silent rage grow within him. He promised himself he would find the bastard who was doing this. As he examined the scene, something caught his attention. Near the sidewalk, there was a small shiny object half buried in the mud. Jack approached and picked up the item, cleaning it with a handkerchief. It was a shirt button, golden and elegant, clearly expensive. "Harris, look at this," Jack said, showing the button. "This could be our first real clue. I'll take this for analysis." Harris nodded, aware that Jack was on the right track. The detective pocketed the button and took one last look at the body before walking away. He knew the journey to catch the red car killer was just beginning, and that the night still held many dark secrets. As Jack walked away from the crime scene, the rain continued to fall relentlessly, as if trying to wash away the city's sins. But he knew that no amount of water could cleanse the bloodstains left by the killer, and he was determined to put an end to it no matter what it took. Jack Malone, with his soaked coat and hat pulled low over his eyes, disappeared into the dark night, ready to face whatever came next. And so, the hunt for the red car killer began, delving even deeper into the shadows of Coldwater City. Chapter 2: The Deadly Pattern. The steel door of the morgue closed with a heavy creak, isolating Jack Malone and the medical examiner, Dr. Henry Thompson, from the rest of the world. The fluorescent lights cast a cold glow over the corpses covered with white sheets. The air smelled of disinfectant and formaldehyde, a familiar and unpleasant combination for Jack. Dr. Thompson, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a perpetually tired expression, waved Jack over, indicating the table where the latest victim's body lay. "Another one, Jack," Thompson said, sighing as he pulled back the sheet, revealing the woman's pale face and lifeless eyes. 32 years old, strangled, just like the others. Jack observed the scene with trained eyes. The woman had bruises on her neck, the same signs of struggle and resistance he had seen before. He took out a notepad and began to write. "How many does this make now, Henry?" Jack asked, although he already knew the answer. 5 in total. All women, all strangled. And all found near a red car. The detective looked at the photos of the previous victims lined up on the morgue wall. There was a disturbing similarity between them. The same expression of terror, the same brutal method. The pattern was clear, and it only increased Jack's urgency to catch the killer. "This button I found at the crime scene. Can you analyze it?" Jack took the small golden object from his pocket and handed it to the medical examiner. Thompson took the button, examining it closely. "Of course, I'll see what I can find out. But, Jack, we have to be quick. This killer is showing no signs of stopping." Jack nodded, feeling the pressure of time. He knew that every minute lost could mean another life taken. "I know, Henry. I know." He rubbed his temple, feeling the tension mount. "Do we have any other pattern besides the red car? Anything that can lead us to the next step?" Thompson shook his head slowly. "Not much. The victims don't seem to have any connection to each other. Different ages, occupations, neighborhoods. It seems random, which makes our job even harder." Jack pondered this as he walked over to the photo board. Something in this chaos made sense to the killer, but to him it seemed like an unsolvable puzzle. He's always one step ahead, but he's going to make a mistake. Jack murmured more to himself than to Thompson. "He's going to leave something we can use to catch him." Thompson placed a hand on Jack's shoulder, a rare gesture of comfort. "And when that happens, we'll be ready. We'll catch this bastard, Jack." Jack looked at the victim's body one last time before turning to leave. He knew the journey was just beginning and that many sleepless nights lay ahead. But he was determined to bring justice for these women and bring peace to a city submerged in fear. As the morgue door closed behind him, Jack felt the darkness of the night envelop his thoughts. He lit another cigarette, the bitter taste of nicotine a weak attempt to calm his nerves. The rain continued to fall outside, relentless, unyielding, washing the streets of Coldwater City as he headed for the next lead. The next clue that might finally break the red car killer's cycle of terror. But that night, all he had were unanswered questions and a golden button. And one name etched in his mind, Justice. Chapter 3, The First Clue. The next morning arrived wrapped in a dense fog that hovered over Coldwater City like a suffocating blanket. Jack Malone, his eyes half closed from lack of sleep, arrived at the latest crime scene. The distant sound of passing cars and the murmuring of curious onlookers still lingered, although the initial frenzy had subsided. Jack adjusted his hat over his forehead and began to scour the scene with the precision of a surgeon. The small cobblestone street, flanked by tall buildings and oppressive shadows, seemed even gloomier under the dim daylight. He knew the red car killer had left something behind. Something he hadn't noticed the previous night. The rain from the night before had turned the sidewalk into a mosaic of mud and puddles. Jack walked carefully, his shoes making small squelching sounds as he moved. His mind was focused, analyzing every detail, every small clue that might have been overlooked. Then he saw it. A faint glimmer, almost imperceptible, under a piece of soaked newspaper. Jack crouched down, moved the paper aside, and found what he was looking for. A golden button, identical to the one he had found before. He held the button between his fingers, examining it closely. The certainty grew within him that this small object could be the key to unraveling the mystery. "Jack!" The familiar voice of Rachel Evans, Jack's partner, pulled him from his thoughts. She approached quickly, holding a hot coffee. "I found something interesting in the police files. All the victims frequented the same cafe downtown. It could be our first concrete connection." Rachel was a talented detective, with piercing green eyes and unshakable determination. Her ability to see beyond the obvious often complemented Jack's methodical approach. She handed the coffee to Jack, who thanked her with a nod. "Good work, Rachel. Let's follow up on this lead." Jack placed the golden button in a small plastic bag and tucked it into his coat pocket. "But first, let's talk to the cafe owners. Maybe they've seen something." The cafe in question was a small establishment called Corner Cafe, known for its homemade cakes and cozy atmosphere. Jack and Rachel arrived shortly after, greeted by the comforting smell of freshly brewed coffee and soft background music. The owner, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, introduced himself as Sam. "Good morning, folks. How can I help you?" Sam asked, wiping his hands on an apron. Jack showed his badge and explained the situation while Rachel carefully observed the surroundings. "Sam, we need to know if you recognize these women," Jack said, showing photos of the victims. "They all frequented your cafe." Sam examined the photos, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "Yes, I remember them. They all came here regularly." He frowned. "But now that you mention it, I recall something odd. A man would come here almost every time they were around. Always alone, always discreet. He wore an elegant suit but never talked to anyone." Jack and Rachel exchanged a significant look. This could be a lead. "Do you remember anything else about him?" Rachel asked. "Actually, yes. He always sat at the corner table by the window. Left good tips, but never said a word more than necessary." "Thank you, Sam. This helps a lot." Jack jotted down the information. "If he shows up again, let us know immediately." As they left the cafe, Jack felt they were finally making progress. The golden button, the connection to the cafe, the mysterious man in the elegant suit. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. "What do you think, Jack?" Rachel asked as they walked back to the car. "I think we're close, Rachel. Very close." He clenched his fists, feeling the adrenaline course through his veins. "This man in the suit is our next lead. We'll find him and put an end to this string of murders." As the fog began to lift, Jack knew the truth was closer than ever. The hunt was in full swing, and the red car killer couldn't hide forever. He and Rachel were determined to follow every lead, to leave no stone unturned, until justice was served. Chapter 4. The Informant. The sun set over Coldwater City, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Shadows stretched across the streets, and the dark alleys began to take on a life of their own. Jack Malone knew that as night fell, the city revealed its darkest and most dangerous side. He walked toward the Rusty Nail, a dimly lit, smoky bar tucked away in a dead-end street. It was the kind of place where secrets were traded for a few dollars and where the city's shadiest figures congregated. It was also where Jack would meet Benny, his longtime informant. Benny was a small, jittery figure with a knack for overhearing things he shouldn't. He had a keen nose for valuable information and an unfailing instinct for surviving the city's tough streets. Jack entered the bar, immediately hit by the strong smell of alcohol and tobacco. The dim lighting and soft jazz music in the background created a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. He spotted Benny sitting at a table in the corner, his eyes darting around like a rat ready to flee at the first sign of danger. "Jack, you made it," Benny said, trying to force a smile as the detective approached and sat across from him. "We need to talk, Benny," Jack said, leaning over the table. "I'm looking for a man who frequents the corner cafe, wears an elegant suit, doesn't talk much. Do you know who I'm talking about?" Benny glanced around nervously, then at Jack. He scratched his sparse beard and took a sip of his drink before answering. "I've heard about a guy like that, yeah. New in town. Runs with dangerous people." Benny lowered his voice, leaning closer to Jack. "They say he drives a red car. Always parks near the alley behind the Central Casino." Jack felt a chill down his spine. The pieces were starting to fit together. "I need a name, Benny. Who is he?" Benny hesitated, glancing around once more before speaking. "His name is Victor Russo. But listen, Jack, this guy's dangerous. If he finds out you're after him, it might not end well." Jack nodded, absorbing the information. He knew he was getting closer to his target, but he also knew that meant stepping into increasingly risky territory. "Thanks, Benny. You did well." Jack placed a $50 bill on the table. "If you hear anything else, let me know immediately." Benny grabbed the money quickly, pocketing it with a look of relief and gratitude. "Be careful, Jack. This guy doesn't mess around." Jack stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had a name now, a man to hunt down. Victor Russo. The hunt was far from over, but he was closer than ever to ending this cycle of violence. As he left the bar, Jack felt the cold night air hit his face. He pulled his coat tighter around him, lit a cigarette, and looked up at the dark sky. The stars were hidden by clouds, but he knew the light was there, concealed by the darkness, waiting to be revealed. With a focused mind and renewed determination, Jack started walking towards the central casino. He knew the next part of the investigation would be crucial. Victor Russo was about to find out there was no escaping the reach of Detective Jack Malone. As he walked through the shadowy streets of Coldwater City, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He knew that in a world of shadows and secrets, the line between hunter and hunted was thin. But he was ready. He was always ready. The night was just beginning, and Jack was prepared to face whatever came his way. Justice had to be served, and he wouldn't rest until the red car killer was captured. With the determination of a man who had seen it all and survived, Jack Malone plunged even deeper into the darkness of Coldwater City, ready to uncover the secrets the night concealed. Chapter 5: The Trap. The central casino of Coldwater City was a glittering jewel amid chaos. Bright lights and colorful neon painted the facade, inviting those seeking fortune and those with secrets to hide. Jack Malone entered the casino, the sound of coins and forced laughter creating a cacophony that masked the tension in the air. Dressed in a discreet suit, Jack blended into the crowd of gamblers and onlookers. His eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of Victor Russo. He knew the man in the elegant suit was here, hiding in plain sight. The smell of tobacco and alcohol was overwhelming, and the sound of shuffling cards and spinning roulette wheels created a hypnotic rhythm. Jack walked to the bar and ordered a drink, observing the room through the mirror behind the counter. That's when he saw him. A dark-haired man in an impeccable suit, with an aura of coldness that stood out amidst the casino's bustle. Victor Russo was seated at the poker table, his eyes sharp and calculating, like a predator waiting to strike. Jack took his drink and approached the table, maintaining a safe distance but close enough to observe Victor's movements. He noticed that Victor played with confidence, his bets high and his glances challenging. He seemed to know he was safe, untouchable. Rachel Evans, his partner, entered the casino shortly after, dressed in an elegant red dress, looking more like a casual player than a detective on a mission. She approached Jack, pretending to be an old acquaintance. "He's here," Jack whispered as he lightly embraced her, keeping up appearances. "I see him. What's the plan?" Rachel asked, her eyes fixed on Victor. "We need to get him out of here without alerting the others. We'll wait until he leaves and follow him," Jack said, watching Victor's movements intently. As the game progressed, Jack noticed a slight smile on Victor's lips when he won another round. Time seemed to drag, each second an eternity. Finally, Victor stood up, collected his chips, and headed to the cashier. Jack and Rachel exchanged a look and began to follow him discreetly. Victor left the casino and headed to the underground parking lot. Jack and Rachel kept their distance, always in the shadows, always alert. The parking lot was a concrete labyrinth, echoing Victor's footsteps and heightening the tension with each moment. When Victor reached his car, a luxurious red sedan, Jack and Rachel moved in quickly, guns drawn. "Victor Russo, police. Hands where I can see them," Jack shouted, his voice firm and authoritative. Victor froze for a second, then quickly turned, a cold smile on his lips. "You really think you can catch me?" he said, his voice full of contempt. Before Jack could respond, Victor pulled a gun from inside his coat and started shooting. Jack and Rachel dove behind a pillar, bullets ricocheting off the concrete around them. "Damn it!" Jack yelled, trying to find a clear line of sight to return fire. "Rachel, flank him from the left." Rachel nodded, moving swiftly through the shadows. Jack kept Victor's attention, exchanging fire and keeping him occupied. The sound of gunfire echoed through the parking lot, creating an atmosphere of chaos and desperation. Suddenly, there was a cry of pain. Rachel had managed to surprise Victor, bringing him down with a precise shot to the shoulder. He fell to the ground, his gun sliding from his hand. "Drop the gun, Victor. It's over," Rachel shouted, keeping her weapon trained on him. Jack approached, still cautious, and kicked the gun away from Victor. He handcuffed the man, who groaned in pain and glared at them with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Malone. You have no idea what you're getting into," Victor spat, the rage evident in his eyes. Jack leaned in, looking directly into Victor's eyes. "We'll see about that," he said, his voice a deadly whisper. As police sirens approached, Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Victor Russo was in custody, but he knew the battle was far from over. Victor's arrest was just the beginning of a new phase in the investigation, and many secrets still needed to be uncovered. With Victor being led to the police car, Jack and Rachel exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between them. The night was far from over, but they were one step closer to justice. And in the dark world of Coldwater City, that was enough to keep fighting. Chapter 6. Relentless Pursuit. The night in Coldwater City felt even more oppressive after Victor Russo's capture. The full moon peeked through the clouds, casting sinister shadows over the buildings and alleys. Jack Malone knew there was more to uncover, more secrets to unravel, and Victor's capture was just the tip of the iceberg. As Victor was taken to the precinct, Jack and Rachel headed to the underground parking lot where the red sedan still stood. The tension in the air was palpable, and both knew that a single clue could be the key to closing the case. Jack opened the car door, using a handkerchief to avoid leaving fingerprints. The search began meticulously, every nook and cranny of the car examined with care. Rachel inspected the glove compartment while Jack searched the trunk. "Here," Rachel called, holding up a small USB key she had found hidden under the passenger seat. Jack took the USB key and examined it. "This could be our chance to link Victor to something bigger. We need to see what's on here." Back at Jack's office, they plugged the USB into the computer. Encrypted files appeared on the screen, a mix of spreadsheets, photos, and documents. With the help of decryption software Jack kept for emergencies, they began to uncover the contents. "This is big, Jack," murmured Rachel, observing the names and financial transactions that appeared on the screen. "It looks like Victor was involved in something much deeper than we thought." As they analyzed the data, they discovered a network of corruption that included politicians, businessmen, and other influential figures in the city. Jack knew this information was explosive and could put many lives at risk, including their own. "We need to take this to the police chief. He needs to know what we found," said Jack, feeling the gravity of the situation. Before they could leave the office, Jack's phone rang. It was Lieutenant Harris. "Jack, I need you at the precinct now." Victor escaped custody. He had help from the inside. Harris's voice was filled with urgency and frustration. "Damn it, we're on our way," Jack responded, quickly hanging up the phone. "Rachel, Victor escaped. Let's go, we need to catch him before he disappears again." They ran out of the office, the sound of their footsteps echoing down the building's stairs. When they arrived at the precinct, chaos reigned. Officers were running around, trying to organize the search for Victor. Harris found Jack and Rachel in the lobby. He was last seen heading towards the port. "We have men searching the area, but we need all the help we can get." Jack and Rachel sprinted to the car, driving quickly towards the port. The streets blurred by as the tension mounted. The port was a labyrinth of containers, cranes, and shadows, the perfect hiding place for someone like Victor. When they arrived, they began searching systematically, splitting up to cover more ground. Jack knew every second counted. Suddenly, a metallic sound echoed between the containers. Jack ran towards the noise, gun in hand and senses on high alert. He saw a shadow move quickly and knew it was Victor. "Stop right there, Victor," Jack shouted, his firm voice echoing through the port. Victor glanced back, his eyes wide with hatred and desperation. Instead of stopping, he ran faster, trying to escape between the containers. Jack picked up the pace, pursuing him relentlessly. The sound of their footsteps echoed, blending with the distant sound of the sea and cranes. The chase led them to the edge of the dock. Victor was cornered with nowhere to run. He turned, pulling a knife from his waist and holding it with trembling hands. It's over, Victor. Drop the weapon. There's no way out for you, Jack said, his gun aimed directly at Victor. Victor smiled, a sick and desperate grin. You think catching me will change anything, Malone? I'm just a pawn in this game. They'll come after you too. Before Jack could respond, Victor lunged with the knife. The movement was quick, but Jack was ready. With a precise move, he dodged and disarmed Victor, throwing him to the ground and pinning him down. Rachel arrived running, handcuffs in hand. We got him, Jack. He's secured. Jack took a deep breath, feeling relief mixed with adrenaline. Yes, but this is far from over. We need to take these files to the police chief and ensure everyone involved is caught. As Victor was led to a police car, Jack and Rachel knew they had made significant progress. But they also knew the real enemy was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike again. And Jack was more determined than ever to bring them all to justice, no matter the cost. Chapter 7, The Revelation. The day dawned gray in Coldwater City, as if the very city felt the weight of the secrets Jack Malone and Rachel Evans were about to uncover. After Victor Russo's capture and the discovery of the files on the USB key, the urgency to expose the network of corruption became even more palpable. Jack and Rachel arrived at the precinct with the documents, ready to reveal the depth of the scheme they had discovered. In the office of Police Chief James Whitaker, the tension was palpable. Whitaker, a robust man with a stern expression and eyes that missed nothing, sat behind his desk, listening intently as Jack and Rachel explained the situation. So, that's it, Jack said, pointing to the laptop displaying the financial transactions and involved names. Victor Russo is not just a serial killer. He's part of a much larger network, a criminal organization involving high-ranking figures in the city. Whitaker leaned forward, his eyes narrowing in concentration. These names, if this is true, we have a major conspiracy on our hands. We need to act quickly and carefully. He looked at Jack and Rachel, the seriousness in his voice clear. I need you to keep investigating. Find concrete evidence we can use to take down this organization once and for all. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He and Rachel left Whitaker's office with renewed determination. The next step was to find Victor Russo's connection to the delivery company, the front hiding the criminal activities. They arrived at the headquarters of Urban Couriers, an apparently innocent delivery company located in an old building in the industrial part of the city. Jack and Rachel entered discreetly, pretending to be clients. They were greeted by a smiling receptionist, who suspected nothing. How can I help you? Asked the receptionist, her voice sweet and professional. We're interested in setting up a regular delivery contract for our company, Jack said, forcing a smile. Could we speak with the manager? The receptionist made a quick call, and soon a middle-aged man with a calculating and cold gaze appeared to greet them. His name was Leonard Briggs, the manager of Urban Couriers. Welcome, I'm Leonard Briggs. How can I assist you? He said, shaking hands with Jack and Rachel. Jack maintained the facade of a client as they walked through the building, observing every detail. They were led to an office where they could talk more privately. We're interested in learning more about your services and how we can tailor them to our needs, Jack said, while Rachel discreetly examined the documents and the environment around her. During the conversation, Rachel managed to gather some crucial information. There was a door at the back of Briggs's office, apparently leading to a warehouse. She knew they needed to get in there to find out more. Could you give us a moment to discuss some details among ourselves? Rachel said, smiling at Briggs. Once alone, Rachel whispered, we need to get into that warehouse. Something tells me that's where they're hiding the evidence. Jack agreed. They waited for the right moment and, when they had the opportunity, sneaked into the warehouse. Inside, they found boxes upon boxes, all marked with codes that didn't make sense at first glance. We have to open these, Jack said, grabbing a crowbar and starting to pry one of the boxes open. Inside, they found documents, drugs, and money. It was the proof they needed to connect Urban Couriers to the criminal network. We need to get out of here now and take this to Chief Whitaker, Rachel said, stuffing some of the most incriminating documents into a backpack. Before they could leave, they heard footsteps approaching. Briggs and two muscular men entered the warehouse, their faces hard and threatening. "Looks like we have intruders," Briggs said with a dangerous smile. "I guess you're not clients after all." Jack and Rachel braced themselves for the confrontation. The two men advanced, and a fierce fight began. Jack managed to take down one of the men with a precise blow, while Rachel fought with the other. Briggs tried to escape, but Jack went after him, determined to leave no loose ends. "Not so fast, Briggs," Jack shouted, catching up to the man and pinning him down. With Briggs detained and the evidence in hand, Jack and Rachel left the building, ready to expose the entire criminal network. They knew the fight was far from over, but each step brought them closer to justice. Back at the precinct, they handed over the evidence to Chief Whitaker, who immediately organized an operation to dismantle urban couriers and arrest everyone involved. The network of corruption was starting to crumble, and Jack felt that justice was finally within reach. But in the dark world of Coldwater City, they knew there would always be more secrets to uncover, more enemies to face. And Jack was prepared for that, ready to continue the fight, no matter what came next. Chapter 8: The True Identity. The early morning in Coldwater City was particularly quiet when Jack Malone and Rachel Evans arrived at the precinct office. The operation at the Urban Couriers building had been a success, and now they had enough evidence to bring many of the culprits to justice. But Jack knew this victory was far from the end. The criminal network that Victor Russo was part of still had deep and dangerous roots. In Jack's office, the light from the desk lamp was the only thing cutting through the darkness. Papers were scattered all over the desk, and the sound of Rachel typing furiously on the computer filled the room. "Jack, I found something," Rachel said, not taking her eyes off the screen. "It looks like Urban Couriers is linked to a larger corporation called Global Dynamics. They have contracts with several companies around the city, and some of them are fronts for laundering money and other illegal activities." Jack approached, examining the documents Rachel had found. "Global Dynamics. This is getting bigger. We need more information about them. Who's in charge?" Rachel clicked on a few links and found the CEO's name, Thomas Harrington, a well-known businessman with an impeccable reputation. But Jack knew no one became that powerful without getting their hands dirty. "Harrington, huh?" Jack murmured, thoughtfully. "We need to find out what he knows and how he's involved in all this." They decided to investigate the headquarters of Global Dynamics, an imposing glass building in the city center. The next morning, disguised as maintenance workers, Jack and Rachel entered the building, taking advantage of the rush hour traffic. Inside the building, security was tight, but Jack had a plan. They would access the company's computer system to find evidence of Harrington's connection to the criminal network. While Rachel distracted the guards, Jack infiltrated the server room using a forged access card. "Rachel, I'm in," Jack whispered through the communicator. "I need time to download these files." "Understood. I'll keep them busy," Rachel replied, walking towards the chief security officer's office. Jack worked quickly, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he copied the most important files. His mind was focused. Every second counted. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching. "Someone's coming," Rachel warned through the communicator. Jack finished the transfer and hid behind a row of servers. Two guards entered the room, talking to each other. "Did you hear about the incident at Urban Couriers?" one of the guards asked. "Yeah, it seems like the police are closing in. I think we're in trouble," the other replied. Jack waited until the guards left before emerging from his hiding spot and returning to the rendezvous point with Rachel. "I got the files. Let's get out of here before they notice we're here," Jack said, handing Rachel a copy of the documents. They left the building without arousing suspicion and returned to Jack's office. There, they began analyzing the documents. What they found was shocking. Harrington was not only involved but was one of the leaders of the criminal network, coordinating money laundering operations and influence peddling. "This is huge, Jack. With this evidence, we can take down Harrington and everyone involved," Rachel said, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. "But we need to be careful. Harrington has many powerful allies. "We can't trust anyone outside this room," Jack replied, his voice grave and determined. They decided that the best way to expose Harrington was through the media. They contacted a trusted journalist, Mark Davidson, who had a reputation for being incorruptible. "Mark, we have a story that will shake this city," Jack said, handing Davidson the documents in a discreet cafe. Davidson examined the papers, his eyes widening in surprise. "This is explosive, but I'll need more proof to ensure this goes to the press safely. We have recordings and witnesses willing to speak. We just need you to publish this," Rachel insisted. Davidson agreed, and together they began planning the publication of the information. They knew they were dealing with a ticking time bomb, but it was a risk they were willing to take. Meanwhile, Jack and Rachel continued gathering more evidence, interviewing former employees of Global Dynamics and other victims of the criminal network. Each new discovery brought them closer to taking down Harrington and cleansing Coldwater City of this corruption network. But they knew Harrington wouldn't stand idle. They needed to act quickly before he discovered their plans and tried to silence them forever. The truth was about to come out, and Jack Malone was prepared to face the consequences. With each step, he and Rachel moved closer to justice, determined not to stop until Harrington and all his accomplices were brought to justice. The battle was far from over, but victory was within reach. Jack looked at Rachel, feeling the strength of his determination reflected in her eyes. Together, they would face any challenge, any danger, to ensure that justice prevailed in Coldwater City. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. Tension in Coldwater City had reached its peak. With evidence in hand and a plan in motion, Jack Malone and Rachel Evans knew they were close to the end. But they also knew that the danger had never been greater. Thomas Harrington was a powerful and ruthless man, and he would not hesitate to use all available resources to protect himself. The next morning, the sky was laden with heavy clouds, as if the city itself sensed the storm that was coming. Jack and Rachel met with Mark Davidson at a secure location to finalize the details of publishing the evidence. They knew they needed to act quickly and with surgical precision. "I have everything ready to go live tonight," Davidson said, his expression serious. "But you two need to be prepared. When this goes public, Harrington will react." "We know, Mark," Jack responded, his face hardened with determination, "and we're ready for whatever comes." With everything prepared, Jack and Rachel returned to the precinct to inform Chief Whitaker of their plans. They needed the police's support to ensure Harrington was arrested as soon as the evidence was made public. "Whitaker, we have enough evidence to take down Harrington and his entire network. But we need your help to make sure he doesn't escape," Jack said, placing the documents on the chief's desk. Whitaker examined the papers, nodding slowly. "I'll mobilize an elite team to surround Harrington's mansion. As soon as the evidence is released, we'll move in." With the plan in motion, Jack and Rachel prepared for the decisive night. Dressed in dark clothes and armed with the determination of those who know justice is near, they headed to Harrington's mansion on the outskirts of the city. The mansion was a true fortress, surrounded by high walls and armed guards. Jack and Rachel positioned themselves at a strategic point, waiting for the right moment to act. As they waited, Jack looked at Rachel, feeling the tension and adrenaline rising. "We're going to end this, Rachel. We'll make sure Harrington never hurts anyone again." Rachel nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "We're in this together, Jack. Until the end." At the exact moment the evidence was published, an alarm sounded in the mansion. The guards scrambled to their positions, but it was already too late. The elite police team, led by Chief Whitaker, moved in, surrounding the property and advancing with military precision. Jack and Rachel moved quickly, infiltrating the side of the mansion. They encountered resistance but were prepared. Jack took down one of the guards with a precise blow, while Rachel neutralized another with her combat skills. Inside the mansion, Harrington was in his office, furious and desperate. He knew he was cornered, but he wouldn't surrender easily. When Jack and Rachel entered, they found him with a gun in his hand, his eyes filled with hatred. "You really think you can take me down?" Harrington shouted, pointing the gun at Jack. "I am untouchable," Jack remained calm, his gun aimed directly at Harrington. "It's over, Harrington. Your lies, your corruption, it's all over. Surrender now and maybe you'll have a chance to survive." Harrington laughed, a cold and insane sound. "You fools. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Before he could pull the trigger, Rachel advanced, disarming him with a quick and efficient move. Harrington fell to the ground, the expression of shock and defeat clear on his face. "It's over," Rachel said, handcuffing him while Jack kept his gun trained to ensure he didn't try anything. With Harrington in custody, Jack and Rachel exited the mansion, greeted by applause from the police and the elite team. Chief Whitaker approached, a smile of satisfaction on his face. "Good work, you two. We did it." But Jack knew that despite this victory, the fight for justice never truly ended. There would always be more shadows to face, more secrets to uncover. As he looked towards the horizon, Jack felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. He knew that the battle against corruption and crime in Coldwater City was endless, but he also knew he was prepared to face it day after day. With Rachel by his side, he was ready for anything. And as long as there was injustice, Jack Malone would continue his mission, fighting to bring light to the darkest corners of the city. That night, under the flickering lights of Coldwater City, Jack and Rachel finally breathed a little easier, knowing they had made a difference. But in the back of their minds, they knew the next battle was always lurking. And they were ready. Chapter 10, Justice Arrives. The sun rose slowly over Coldwater City, casting a golden glow on the rain-soaked streets from the night before. The morning silence was almost surreal, as if the city were catching its breath after the storm of recent events. Jack Malone and Rachel Evans, exhausted but determined, sat in their office, reviewing the final pieces of the puzzle they had uncovered. Jack's phone rang, breaking the silence. Malone speaking. It was Chief Whitaker. "Jack, we need you at the precinct. We have some people here wanting to talk about the Harrington case. This could be the final piece we need to tie everything together." "We're on our way," Jack replied, hanging up and looking at Rachel. "Looks like we have visitors. Let's see what they have to say." Arriving at the precinct, they found a packed conference room. Several former employees of Global Dynamics and Urban Couriers were there, ready to testify against Harrington. The revelations were shocking. Bribery, contract manipulation, intimidation, and even some covered-up murders. All of this strengthened the case against the powerful magnate. "This is it, Rachel. We have everything we need to ensure Harrington never sees the light of day again," Jack said, his eyes shining with the satisfaction of justice being served. Later that day, as Jack and Rachel stood in court, the city paused to watch the trial. Harrington, once untouchable, now sat on the defendant's bench, his face pale and his eyes filled with despair. Witnesses took turns detailing their stories and providing indisputable evidence of his criminal activities. The prosecutor presented all the evidence gathered by Jack and Rachel, from financial documents to the testimonies of former employees. Harrington tried to defend himself, claiming it was all a conspiracy against him, but the evidence was overwhelming. Finally, the judge pronounced the sentence. Thomas Harrington was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in murmurs and applause, and Jack felt a huge weight lift off his shoulders. "We did it, Rachel. We brought justice to Coldwater City," Jack said, smiling at his partner. "Yes, we did. But we know there's still much to be done," Rachel replied, sharing in the moment of triumph. They left the courthouse as heroes, but also as detectives aware that the work never ends. Coldwater City would always have dark secrets, and they were ready to face them. That night, back in their office, Jack reflected on the recent events. The city was safer now, but he knew constant vigilance was necessary. Rachel entered with 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Jack. "To a successful battle," Rachel toasted. "And to many more to come," Jack replied, raising his glass. As the moonlight bathed the city, Jack and Rachel toasted to justice, truth, and the unwavering determination to continue fighting against the shadows trying to overtake Coldwater City. They knew that together, they could face any challenge, unmask any villain, and bring light to the city's darkest corners. The fight for justice never ended, but that night, at least, they could rest knowing they had made a difference. And with that certainty, they were ready for whatever came next, determined to protect the city they called home. Epilogue. With the dawn of a new day, Jack and Rachel continued their mission, ready to face the challenges the future would bring. Coldwater City, with all its complexities and secrets, now had two tireless guardians. The fight against crime and corruption was never-ending, but Jack Malone and Rachel Evans were up to the task. And as long as there was injustice to combat, they would be there, ready to bring justice to the darkest corners of the city.